Welcome to Football Game Plan's FCS Kickoff. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Mike McCarthy is the producer behind the boards. It's week 10 in the FCS, and man, things are starting to get tight. A lot of teams have must-win games, and we can't wait to break them down in this week's episode. Let's start this video off by taking a look at some of the upset specials of this week, and we'll start with the Alcorn State-New Mexico State game. The Alcorn State Braves take their vaunted ground attack to Las Cruces to take on the New Mexico State Aggies in a later than usual FCS versus FBS matchup. One thing we know Alcorn can do is run the ball and stop the run. They've been a bully up front all season long and have done a great job in getting off the field on third downs. In a game of this magnitude, it'll be important for the Braves to be able to avoid the costly mistakes and play a disciplined, clean game from a penalties perspective. The Aggies, who made it to a bowl game last season for the first time since 1960, are having a lot of struggles this year, most of them coming from not being able to stop the run, giving up 5 yards a carry and over 271 yards a game, and not being able to get off the field defensively or slow opponents down inside the red zone. That doesn't bode well for them against the Braves' strengths in this game. I'm taking Alcorn in the upset. We have a Big South game make our upset alert list as the Campbell Camels travel to Kennesaw State to take on the Owls. And from a matchup perspective, the Camels defense gives them a shot in this game. They are athletic and lengthy across the board and do a great job of playing team defense. Offensively, it's another story. They're facing one of the best defenses in the FCS in the second-ranked Kennesaw State Owls, and the Owls are one of the more disciplined teams in the country. And if quarterback Daniel Smith isn't in the lineup for Campbell, I struggle to see how they can find that continuity on that side of the ball. Also, when you talk continuity and offense, you're speaking Kennesaw State's language. They'll avoid a letdown here and get the victory. What a game this should be between Missouri State and South Dakota State. The reason why this is on upset alert is due to the unpredictable nature of the Missouri State Bears this season. We've seen this squad knock off 20th ranked Northern Arizona and 9th ranked Illinois State, but only to lose to South Dakota, Southern Illinois, and Western Illinois. We don't know which team will show up against the Jackrabbits. Whichever team that is for Missouri State has to remember to bring their ball security and better defense to the table. South Dakota State, weirdly enough, is in a must-win situation in my opinion. They can't afford another loss down the stretch against teams that they should be heavily favored against because of how competitive the at-large bids are this season in the FCS playoff picture. I worry about the Jacks defense giving up big plays in the passing game this week to quarterback Peyton Huslick. However, one thing Huslick does that Taryn Christian doesn't is turn the ball over. I like South Dakota State in this one. Potential trap game here in the Ohio Valley Conference as Tennessee State travels to Southeast Missouri State, and the Tigers have a very potent offensive attack that's able to operate with balance. What has them at 3-3 on the season has been a spotty defense, which hasn't normally been the case for head coach Rod Reed. If they're going to pull off the upset, their defense has to be much better on both ends. For SEMO, they're balanced offensively like TSU is a big reason why they've given teams a load of problems this year. Now on the flip side, stopping the run will be key in this one for the Redhawks if they want to close out the Tigers. I like how Southeast Missouri State is able to match up in the secondary against the receivers of Tennessee State. That'll be the reason why I feel as though they'll move their record to 7-2. I like Southeast Missouri State to win this one.
Well, the FCS creates so many opportunities for young men. And it's, I think, and you look in our league, it's really the best. It's the best combination of winning football, but also outstanding student athletes. That's really the true model here. And a lot of the FCS programs feel the same way. And, you know, we're blessed to be where we're at here at Lehigh, and everybody else in this league feels the same way. But the FCS, you'll see a lot of people that aren't coming necessarily to the NFL, but what they are is they're becoming leaders of industry, whatever they do when they graduate. And that's really the most important piece of going to college and playing college football, is to getting that degree. And our guys really excel in that response.
Let's get back to previewing some games. An interesting one here in the Northeast Conference between Duquesne and Wagner, as the Dukes have their road to the playoffs laid out right in front of them. The first test, the Wagner Seahawks. This game will feature two of the FCS best running backs in the Dukes, A.J. Hines, and the Seahawks, Ryan Foltz. Duquesne has both Sacred Heart and Central Connecticut State on the schedule, which could give them the NEC title if they were able to win out. Not to disregard what Wagner has done this season, and they do pose a legitimate threat, but until they can find some consistency at quarterback, I struggle to see them knocking off the Dukes. It's definitely possible, especially behind the running of Foltz, but look for Duquesne to win this one. In the Pioneer League, the San Diego Toreros have a chance to inch closer to wrapping up the Pioneer League title when they take on the Drake Bulldogs. I love the quarterback matchup in this game with Anthony Lawrence and Drake's Grant Kramer. With two terrific passers in this contest, the focus goes to which defense can you trust to get stops, and I don't think you can definitively answer that question, as both are very solid units. The key in this ball game for me will be if San Diego can get out to an early start on offense while playing better third down defense. Both will be a challenge in this game, and if you're Drake, now will be the time to find a consistent running game, as the Toreros are a bit more giving on the ground than they are through the air. This one will be a close one, but I do like San Diego to eke out a victory. Point of attack play is huge, and I think the San Diego Toreros offensive line is one of the best in the league, and it's the defensive line that does a great job in being disruptive. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Big game in the CAA between Rhode Island and Elon. This is a must-win game for both teams, honestly, which is weird to say for the 8th ranked team in the country, but all is not well in Phoenix land. How long can they keep it going with a backup quarterback and running back is going to be the question. And to be honest, you can say the same thing about Rhode Island and its backup quarterback. This game, to me, will come down to defense and special teams. I think with their backs against the wall, the backs against the wall type nature of the Rams, looking how they can find success in both passing the football in addition to their ability to run the ball, I like the matchup here for them, and I think the Rams will knock off Elon, just further clouding the FCS playoff picture. The Bearcats and Cardinals face off in the Southland Conference tilt. Sam Houston State showed some grit last week in the win versus Southeastern Louisiana. This week, they're facing an offense in Incarnate Word that's very similar to them from an explosiveness perspective. However, they are facing a defense that's athletic and active around the ball. Quarterback Ty Brock has been an upgrade at the quarterback position for the Bearcats and has done a great job of keeping this offense on pace. When you look at the Bearcats defensively, the hope is that they can find ways to get stops early in this ball game. Incarnate Word has been quite the story this year in the conference, and it looks to be a team to watch for 2019. This year, especially in the last 3 weeks, they've been a bit inconsistent defensively, which explains their 1-2 record during this stretch. With the playoffs approaching, look for Sam Houston State to strengthen their resume for an at-large bid by knocking off the Cardinals. Samford still has some FCS playoff hopes as they welcome in the Wofford Terriers. This is going to be a strength versus strength battle between the Terriers secondary against the passing attack of Samford, led by quarterback Devlin Hodges. We know about the Terriers' option attack, and they'll have some success running the football against the Bulldogs, but will they be able to slow down the up-tempo offense of Samford and, most importantly, keep them out of the end zone? Now, Samford has to be able to make this game a track meet and use their offense as their best defense, and there's two schools of thought on how they can make that happen. Go all out and push tempo and be aggressive and going for it on 4th downs in an attempt to score touchdowns, or slow down the tempo and try to beat Wofford at their own game by controlling the clock. I think ultimately it'll be the Terriers' defense once again being the story as they'll defeat Samford. Another big game in the CAA between Maine and Towson. Now the Black Bears find themselves needing to win out to strengthen their case for an at-large bid. The loss a couple of weeks ago to William & Mary was a huge one. They have all of the ingredients to be successful in this ball game on Saturday. They can turn the ball over, and overall they play great defense. That'll have to be the case as they are facing one of the most explosive offenses in the FCS and the Towson Tigers, led by Walter Payton Award candidate quarterback Tom Flacco. The Tigers are coming off of a loss to Delaware and are looking to get back on the right track, and they'll need that defense to get his mojo back as they were gashed in a passing game by the Blue Hens. Now this game means a ton to both teams as far as the FCS playoffs are concerned, so it wouldn't surprise me to see a bevy of gadget plays, but at the end of the day, the Tigers have the more stable quarterback situation, and that'll be enough to side with them in this ball game. This weekend on ESPN3 and ESPNU and the Watch ESPN app, you can catch me as the color analyst for the big game in the MEAC between the Florida A&M Rattlers and the Howard Bison. That's the Rattler offense and their tenacious defense going up against the Go-Go offense and the Howard Bison. This is a game that Florida A&M must win, and if they can do so, they have a clear-cut path to the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia, December the 15th. So again, this game is 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday afternoon, ESPN3, the Watch ESPN app.
I think that the main reason to choose HBCU is for the family atmosphere. The guys are going to get the core values that their parents taught them, that their family members tried to raise them. You'll have a close-knit atmosphere. You'll actually have guys that care about you as a person. So I think that's the main reason for choosing the HBCU.
And now it's time for our Stats FCS Game of the Week preview. And this week we have a battle of unbeatens in the Ivy League as the Dartmouth Big Green travel to Princeton to take on the Tigers. And we'll start by taking a look at some of the coaching points in this ball game for both teams, starting with the Dartmouth Big Green. And we know Dartmouth lives and dies by their ability to run the football, and they do that extremely well. But in this ball game against Princeton, just to keep the Tigers off balance, it'll be important that they find easy completions in the passing game. I was at that Yale game earlier in the year where they did just this, and it kept the Bulldog defense from just loading up to stop the run. If they can replicate this strategy against Princeton, they can have the success that they want offensively. On defense, they will have to take some changes in the passing game, and I'm talking about sending some extra guys to force quarterback John Lovett to get rid of the football quickly, sometimes going press on the outside, being unafraid of the two talented wideouts that Princeton possesses, maybe bracketing one of them, trusting Isaiah Swan to lock up the other. Regardless of what the method may be, the result has to be an ineffective passing day for Princeton. And it's about playing contained defense against this offense. You can't allow John Lovett to have success on the ground, take away one element of his game while also not allowing those speedy tailbacks to turn the corner. This will be huge for Dartmouth if they want to knock off Princeton. Moving over to the Tigers in this ball game, and they have to stay the course offensively. What they do now is exactly what the game plan should be against Dartmouth. The Big Green's defense is active and wants to attack downhill, but the Tigers' offense is multiple and does a great job of neutralizing that pressure. What can happen in this game is Princeton trying to be overly creative or get too cute, losing a possession or two to unnecessarily to Dartmouth. The Tigers will also have to own the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. If they struggle here, then it'll be lights out for Princeton in this ball game. Dartmouth is outstanding along the offensive line, and they are very strong within their defensive front seven. Princeton has to be able to win up front in order to win the game. The last point goes without saying: make Dartmouth beat you passing the football. That requires Princeton to consistently win on obvious running downs and running situations, putting their offense behind the chains on critical down and distance situations. This is the game the Big Green does not want to play, but it's the one that the Tigers must play in order to win. Looking at some X factors in this game, and offensively for Dartmouth, the offensive line is key. This is the best offensive line in the Ivy League, in my opinion, led by left tackle Matt Caskey. They have the size and athleticism to get movement up front and do a fantastic job of not allowing penetration. How they play could ultimately determine the outcome of this ball game. Defensively, cornerback Isaiah Swan is one of the best in the nation regardless of subdivision. He also leads the FCS in interceptions with 7. It'll be his job to take away one of Princeton's top wide receivers in Stephen Carlson and Jesper Horsted. My guess is that he'll draw Horsted the entire game and will have to match athleticism, physicality, and skills with him throughout the course of this contest. This is going to be a premier matchup on the perimeter. For Princeton, on offense, their backfield is the biggest X factor. They have legitimate speed back there in senior Charlie Volker and sophomore Colin Eady. Both guys can fly and have the ability to ring that cash register pretty quickly. How well can they play that game breaker role is going to be key. Defensively, I look at the linebackers of Princeton. Both Mark Fossati and Tom Johnson are amongst the Ivy's best at the position and will have to play that way in defending the downward pressure of the Big Green rushing attack. They'll have to consistently get off blocks, find the football, and make impactful plays in the running game in order to give the Tigers a chance to win on Saturday. I like Princeton in this ball game. The Tigers have the ultimate X factor at QB in John Lovett, who is playing at an elite level this season. I think as good as the Big Green defense is, there is only so much you can do to slow down the freight train that is the Princeton's offense. The multiplicity of their attack is why I will give them a slight edge in this one. Also, we can't ignore the fact that Princeton is one of the top defensive teams in the entire FCS, only allowing 9 points a game. They'll push their record to 8-0 on the season after this one. So that's it for this week's episode of the FCS Kickoff. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. Don't forget to check out and subscribe on iTunes to the FCS Opening Drive podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating, and always check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/footballgameplan.